Well, I've decided it's now or never. It's still not ideal. We're still getting some cooler nights, but we do seem to have turned a bit of a corner. So that bench full of seedlings in the polytunnel, I'm going to try and thin it right down. So I've got my courgettes and my squash here. I'm just hoping that I'll be able to read all the labels and I know where I'm going. Okay, I'll get a trowel and we'll get cracking. So what am I doing with tomato collars? Well, I used these last year and I found that certainly in the beginning, when these young plants are at risk of being blown over or damaged, that extra support that came from the collar was a good thing. So I'm going to do it again. And my layout is really going to be courgettes on the far bed because, well, the squash and pumpkins grew so far over that they nearly covered the pond. I certainly had to prune them to keep it under control. And I think the courgettes might not grow quite as prolifically. So I'm going to keep the squash on the first two beds. And I just got to sort out what I want to plant where. And I've got way too many, but I might find some other spots around the plot that I might just stick one in and give any away that anyone's interested. Okay, so let's see what I've got, what's in here. And the beauty of these root trainers is that they're easy to pull out and read. So the first one I've got is coriander. Not really what I'm looking for. Right, what's next? So this is also coriander. And now we're into the squash. So first one is small sugar. Fantastic. So in there I've got 3 good plants. Let me show you what stage they're at. So really nice and healthy, quite thick stems, no weakness at the base, but certainly ready to go out. So I think there'll be 3 good plants to pick to start with. Okay, let's keep going. Spaghetti squash, given to me by a subscriber. 4 good plants. This one is Little Gem. So this was also given to me and is a climbing small pumpkin. You see the length of those. I think they might end up going somewhere else. And then we've got Ishikuri. So they're 3 good plants. And we've got, what's this one? Winter Luxury, very much like the small sugar. Wow, massive roots on there. And 3 good plants. And this one, another small sugar. And there's 3 good plants on that. So that's those. And let's just see what we've got in this other one. Right, so we've got, first one, I think is going to be courgettes. No label, pretty sure these are courgettes. And this one is courgette ambassador. So these are all courgettes. So there's 6, 7 there. And what have we got here? Leaves are a bit tangled. I would imagine that's courgette as well. And this one, courgette zucchini. So I think those 2 are zucchini, and I think these 2 are ambassador. And then we're into some rockets. So that can move away at the moment and I'll work out where things go. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots for courgettes. So I think I'm gonna take those over there for now and just decide what mix I want of zucchini and ambassador. So they're pretty much decided upon. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, I think I've got 12 pumpkins and squash. So winter luxury about there. These are small sugar, and I'm going to have some on each side so that if for any reason one of these beds fails, I don't imagine it will, but I just want to be cautious and make sure that I've got some small sugar. And then we've got, yep, winter luxury, and this one is ishikuri, so we'll have that on the end. And then we've got spaghetti, I think we'll have that at this end, and that leaves one, which is Little Gem, which I'm going to probably take somewhere else. So it's going to have about 4 of the small sugars, a couple of winter luxury, and then the other varieties at the end. Okay, I'm going to clear my way, get these collars in place, and move the strawberries off. They've been doing well there without any slugs in this area, and then start planting. And I think we'll have copious amount of water on hand at the same time. That's one row in, and you can see these collars, well, they're not very stable, they don't go into the earth, they sit on the membrane, so I'm just using some stones to weight them down. It gives the whole thing rigidity, but you can see how it offers protection to these plants, and I haven't got enough to go around, so this one's going to have to fare on its own, but it's quite a strong stem, and I've put him in quite deeply and firmed him in quite well as well, and hopefully he'll bear the brunt of these winds which we're experiencing today. Okay, on with the next row, and then we'll see what we've got left. I know you're thinking, what is he up to now? What's all that? Well, these are a bit of a trick. So this is guttering that's fairly low gauge, a couple of inches across, with lots of holes bored in the bottom, and of course it's hollow. And what you do with this is push it into the soil, keeping clear of the root that you've just put in, push it down, and that is a feeding and watering tube for the rest of this plant's days. And obviously when these plants start spreading and the leaves start getting bigger, it gets ever more difficult to water with this membrane over the top. This way it's really simple. I just find the tube and the water or the feed goes straight down the middle. So that's what I do, and it works, well, reasonably successfully. Certainly has done for the last 2 or 3 years. So I'm doing it again. So we've got quite a contraption here now. We've got the collar, we've got weights in them because they'd easily move around in the wind and break the plants. And we've got the tube for feeding, and then the plant is nicely planted in between all of that and hopefully will flourish. So I'll get the tubes in these pumpkins and squash that I've planted and then get on with the courgette. There we are, it's simple as that. Not a difficult job at all. And then all I need to do is fill these tubes up, give them a good water. And you might have seen I've got a cable tie at the top. I can just put in the tag from each of the trays so that I got some sort of idea what I'm planting or what I have planted. I've got to tell you, I forget, and the plant labels, they lose what I've written on them over time, and it all becomes a bit of a surprise, but I don't mind that either. It's always good fun pushing amongst the leaves on your squash and pumpkins to try and find out what you've got. Okay, I'm going to just finish off watering all these and then on to the next. Well, it's a bit different in the shade. Okay, so this is my random I think random, hugelkultur bed, which appears to have some volunteer potatoes, a couple of volunteer strawberry plants, and this is growing at the back, not actually in the bed, and is a weed really. So what I'm going to do, I'll clear out my stakes which are here, and I'm just going to plant some of these little gem squash or pumpkins and a few coriander in here as well. One's come away in my hand so you can go straight in, and these benefit from climbing and they produce a very small sort of one person size meal, and I'm going to keep one for the lady who gave them to me, or the seeds, thank you Liz, and put the others in so that they climb up the coop. That's the plan. So let's get that one in nice and deep, and I don't need the label because they're the only squash that are in here. And I've immediately come across a piece of wood that's in the hugelkultur bed. I suppose that's always a risk, but I'm going to find a hole and get this one down and in. There we go, nice and tight, and then it'll lean back and hopefully wind its way round the wire. So I've got one more of those. I think we'll put that one in over here. Well, the chickens are loving it. There we go. And hopefully they'll work out. They certainly need somewhere to climb. I think the chickens might have something to say about it in the early days. We'll see if they succeed. Right, that one's going to Liz. And then I'm going to pop some of this rocket in and coriander just to give the bed a bit of a herb feel. Right, this is where my sprouts are going to go, and the ground's nice and firm, which is what's made me select it, but I've got quite a lot of weed growth, so I'm going to be fairly careful because I don't want to get away all that firmness that I've managed to achieve. So I'll be treading it in carefully and removing this weed. I don't want to cut the tops off because it will just regrow. So I'm going to work my way through the bed, get it into some sort of order, and then sprout time. That's done the job, and just going to spread a little bit of lime on the surface because of clubroot, which is in these allotments, but taking the weeds out sort of directly under the leaves gets the roots out and has left me plenty of firm locations to put my sprouts in, because of course that's what they like. So I have to get my sprouts, get them in, and then I've got a bit of a rescue on a couple of sprouts over there. Okay, so I've got brilliant F1 sprout recommended by a subscriber, hopefully to break my nemesis of year-on-year sprout failure. So this is a year I'm thinking. This is nice and firm, it's quite rich. This is a recommended sprout, and fingers crossed. I'll keep the canes close by just in case they grow tall and I get some sprouts, who knows. Right, up to the top. I'm going to put quite a few in here. I might even stagger them sort of zigzag all the way down, because I'm figuring that I've had a bit of slug damage and I might get a bit more. I'll try and hang on to a few plants, but once I've sort of given up on seedlings in the polytunnel, it's a bit of a point of no return for me. So let's get them in and we'll see how we go. Well, I might get a bit of a ticking off from Mrs. K because my knees, well, they're what you might call muddy, but you know what it's like when you get stuck in and you sort of forget that. Anyway, they're in. Fantastic. Plenty of lime around the roots and canes at the ready. Just got to keep an eye out for slugs, which reminds me, 2 to replace over there. So here we are in Slugsville, and this is a real challenging area right next to this banking. So we'll roll this up, try not to get it too wound into the barbed wire that's here. And you can see that these two plants, well, I'll tell you what, that's what's left of them. So they're out. These are beginning to get attacked. So I'm going to put 2 new ones in and then put some preventative measures in place. So I kept 2 back from that little session I've just had. Let's get them in. And hopefully a little bit of gravel around them will deter the slugs. I'm not putting out a huge amount of hope, but I think that's probably the best I'm going to be able to do. That's one in. Turn around, try not to stamp on that one. My Courgettes here are also being eaten at a rate of knots. Put that one in. Throw him down. There we go. Right. There's already some lime in the soil here, but I'll put some more around and get some of that gravel. I think what I'm going to do is put it around all of these plants because it just seems like a good idea. Hopefully it will deter them. I'll do it heavily, these ones at the beginning. I normally put eggshell around these sort of plants, but we're getting less eggs on a continual basis now as the hens get older, and we're also using it a lot more, so there actually isn't any left. Right, put some around here. I'm hoping this gravel, which is a sort of mix of sharp sand and a bit of sand, a bit of gravel, which I guess is what sharp sand is, and hopefully we'll put those slugs off completely. And maybe even a barrier down there might mean that the Courgettes survive as well. Right, it's got 2 chances, as I say. Right, well, when I planted these onions, I left loads of room around the banks. I did that intentionally because I just wanted good spacing so that it was easy to weed, and I've got a bit of that weeding to do. I've done a little bit. But one of the things I was thinking about in the back of my mind is that these slopes could be used for any sort of incidental planting. So I'm going to put in just 3 or 4 coriander plants on the edge here and see how they get on. Coriander tends to like full sun. This is very clayey down here, so I don't know how they're going to do, but it's something extra. So if they do well, it'll be a bonus. Right, let's get another one in here. Now coriander tends to bolt very easily, but these plants are quite young and they haven't done yet, which is good news. Whereas the rocket that I've been growing has actually bolted in the seed tray, which is a bit of a pain. I'm going to take the flower heads off and see if I can get it to sort of regrow some leaves, which is of course what you eat. Let's get that one in. It's a bit flimsy. And then the last one on the edge here. And it just makes use of this extra bit of banking on this bed. Right, even got a label. Good times. Here at Bean Central, things are going pretty good. We're getting plenty of winding round the canes, which is always good to see. We've got a couple of issues. We've got this one that really doesn't want to stay where he is, so I'm just about to tie him to the cane. Don't have to do that normally too much, but it is a bit breezy. And then I'm going to replace these two. This one's completely shredded and this one's exactly the same. In fact, that one's in a bad way as well. So I did keep a few spares and they got quite lanky now. So I'm going to plant those and wrap them round and tie anything that's struggling. And that should keep everything in good order whilst we're having this windy spell and they get anchored. So I've had a mini sort out, got my basil set out, got a few lettuce left, my parsnips still to come on, my house tomatoes looking grand, and they'll take pride of place on my bench. And this is what I've got left. And I've pretty much got one small bed left to do something in. And well, I've got some choices, but I'll be looking for homes for this from neighbouring plot owners, I suspect. So that's me done for today. I do hope you've enjoyed this, well, bit of a rush video. I needed to get everything in the ground, that's for sure. So it was a case of I got to get it done. Well, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you want to get my uploads every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 p.m. Good times.